Thanks for being with us. I think we should have some slides coming up shortly. But yeah, my role is sales specialist for everything related to SASE and Zero Trust in the region. And I started my career as pre-sales, doing network. So I was not really familiar with cybersecurity at the beginning. But I really liked that. When I started moving there, I said, okay, no more network. I just want to focus on cybersecurity. And I found it extremely interesting because it was changing every day. So every morning you look at the news, you have new attacks, you have new things to think about. Then it became my job on a day-to-day, and then everything changed. It became just source of stress all the time. And I'm sure you guys are in the same situation because you are facing this on a day-to-day basis. You are all like CISO or CIO or IT ops, security ops, and you are facing all these challenges. So let me share a bit with you and try to see if you can relate to some of them based on what Cloudflare is seeing out there. So the first one that I want to talk about is DDoS. Like if you never faced DDoS, good for you, but some people went through that and it's not a very comfortable situation to be in. What we've noticed, so we always keep track of all these attacks, and what we notice are two things. First, we notice a huge increase in high volumetric attack. A huge amount of data coming into your network. The last one we got was in October 2024, 5.6 terabit per second. That's the last one that we blocked, and it was one of the highest ever recorded. The second thing that we saw during transition from Q3 to Q4 last year, we saw an increase of 2,000% of attack, volumetric attack, more than 1 terabit per second. So that's a dramatic increase, 2,000%, can you imagine? And another thing that we realize also is these attacks are quite short. They're actually around 10 minutes. And there's a reason for this. If you use a traditional mitigation solution, in 10 minutes, you don't have time to mitigate that. Usually when you realize something is happening, you get your team, you start talking about, okay, what's going on, guys? What can we do about it? Maybe call the ISP, try to figure out. By 10 minutes, that's it. The alert is gone, the attack is gone, and then you continue with the rest of your day. And then guess what? The next day, boom, an attack again. So that tells you that because of the attack changing in terms of volumes and in terms of frequency or time, you also have to change the way you defend against this. So you have to move into more always-on kind of protection. You cannot wait for something to be detected and then suddenly change the way you mitigate that. It needs to be always on. And the 5.6 terabit per second that I was talking about was mitigated without human intervention. Another threat is the speed of performing or exploiting a vulnerability. So 22 minutes, same thing, 22 minutes. Can you imagine if you see a vulnerability, you start talking to your team, okay, so should we patch? Where should we start? What's the most important, sensitive servers that we need to patch? 22 minutes. You don't even have time to finish the meeting that the POC, the proof of concept, is already out. That was recorded in May, I think, 2024. And that was a CI/CD solution called Bitbucket, so it's part of software development. The vulnerability was announced. The first exploit was out there in 22 minutes. And people started scanning. You know, once the POC is out there, you start scanning, you start finding vulnerable platform, and then you start to attack. And even people with, I would say, low to medium skill set would be able to do that. Third one, I think that was mentioned a few times already, phishing. Phishing is a huge problem. We always hear 90% of the breaches start with phishing. Okay? Social engineering, like what was mentioned earlier, is a problem, and phishing comes on top of that. So just to give you an idea in terms of numbers, phishing today is a 3 billion problem. 3 billion phishing email are flowing every day globally. And sometimes it's difficult to understand what 3 billion is. So just to give you an idea, it's the number of card transactions every day. Visa, MasterCard, all of this. That's a gigantic amount. That's also the number of cups of coffee consumed every day, just to give you an idea globally. So it's a huge, huge problem. And we also have APIs. So in a world that completely transformed from on-prem to cloud, completely digitalized, you not only have people interacting with servers, but you have a lot of machine-to-machine communication. You have a lot of mobile application. And all of this is going via APIs. And APIs are being developed by software developers. Most of the time, software developers don't really care about security. The only thing they care about is their own KPI, like almost everyone, and their KPI is ship features. So that team will be managed and measured every single week or month or quarter by the number of features they ship. So they're going to focus on that. And that's how a lot of the traditional solutions moved to SaaS, because people were able to leverage all these features extremely fast and extremely easy, in a very easy way. So now going back to security, how do you control all of this? First, you can't really use the traditional solutions because they were not designed for this type of interaction. Traditional on-prem solution cannot really understand what's happening when you use multi-cloud environment, hybrid cloud environment, and they also don't really understand the context. When you do API, there are a specific sequence of events that needs to happen. And this traditional solution don't understand that. When you shop, for example, you have to put items in the cart. Once you put items in the cart, then you go through checkout. All these sequences are predetermined. And some of the attackers sometimes are trying to shift this around. So if you have a solution that understands the context, you can be way more effective at blocking this type of attacks. We did also, so that was the findings from Cloudflare as a company, what we see out there because of all the traffic we see. We also asked a few people like you, maybe you participated in this last year, end of last year, around what's the top priority for all the CISO out there. Obviously, AI, top of mind, 92% were mentioning that AI is a concern and is not improving. I mean, it's maybe improving the life of the software developers because they can ask ChatGPT to code for themselves, but for security, it's a big problem. Compliance and all that comes around, all the audits, all the certifications, it's also a problem. More than 50% said that they are spending 10% of the time just looking at compliance. So 10% is what? Is almost half a day. So you take a week, for half a day, you are not working on projects, you are not helping your business, you are just fulfilling compliance. So you have to do this. If you want to be in business, you have to do this. You have no choice. And the last one is, of course, people that saw an increase in cybersecurity incidents. If you remember all the big threats that we mentioned, it makes sense that all of you are a bit worried to see that we have faster attack, we have bigger attack, and you have to deal with that on a day-to-day basis. So the good news, I know I started with a lot of bad news, that's cybersecurity for you, but we have some good news. The good news is, in 2025, you should have more money to spend. The budget is supposed to increase. If that's not the case, you don't blame it on me, you blame it on Gartner, okay? They are the ones saying that you should get roughly 5% increase in terms of IT budget. And this budget will go in specific areas. Of course, Gen AI and AI in general would be a big topic, and cyber security as a pillar will get most of it as well. So what are you going to do with all this budget? You're going to think about initiative. We can build all of that, and you can use that money. The problem, again, there's always a lot of problems, is that most of the big projects like this in IT, in tech in general, are failing. 35% are failing, either in terms of timeline, or in terms of scope, or over budget. So we ask ourselves and we ask the client, why are these projects failing? What is the main reason why all of, like 35% of these are failing? And some of them are failing partially, some of them are failing totally. So if you really look at what success is 30%, it's very low. And the overall answer is, our networks are too complicated. went through a lot of transformation, and we couldn't adapt as fast as the business was going. And on top of this, you had the pandemic, people starting working from home, working from everywhere, hybrid work, hybrid cloud, all this makes your life very complicated. Because as IT, as tech, what do we need to do? We need to make people productive. We need to have access to all these applications, either on-prem or in the data center or in the cloud, and we need to connect them to all the users working from everywhere. And that is extremely complicated. So when you try to change this, you have to accommodate a lot of different things. You have to make sure that user experience is very good. You have to ensure that you have resiliency. But you realize very fast that you have to balance this with other criteria. You want security, you want cost or cost effectiveness, and you want agility. So if you want a lot of agility, you go to the cloud, you get resiliency, but maybe the security, you have some compliance problem because you want to have something that is on-prem and you know the data is there. So you need to manage all of this. And that's where the complexity is, and that's why some of these projects are failing. So we always say complexity is the enemy of security. So how do we fix that? One way of fixing this is to simplify all of that network and security infrastructure. And we do this via, in Cloudflare, via a concept that we call connectivity cloud. So there are a lot of clouds out there. Ours, we define it as connectivity cloud. So what is it? It's basically a fabric that helps you to connect all these people to all their applications. And by doing this, you also embed security, security by design or not bolted on, whatever you want to call it. But basically, you have a single network where you can bring the traffic through and secure that traffic. 3 pillars in that connectivity cloud, just to be a bit more specific. The first one is what we call connect. So connect is how you're going to build all that fabric in between your users and your applications. And we can use multiple things, network as a service, we can use tunnels, we can use, we call them the on-ramp. So we have a lot of different on-ramps to replace VPN, replace MPLS, replace all these things. Okay? So once you have all of these locations and users connected, second pillar, you need to protect them. And protect is what? Protect is the whole zero trust that we have been talking about earlier and people were sharing along the day. ZTNA, Zero Trust Network Access to replace VPN, Secure Web Gateway, DLP, all these things. And then the third pillar might not be very interested for you guys today, but it's about building. So that's more for software developers. But if you think about it, if you already have network and security, why don't you start building application leveraging the same platform? Makes life much, much easier. All of this, of course, needs to integrate and work with what you have on the ground. It cannot be greenfield and you replace Big Bang approach. No, it needs to integrate. So we have partnership with a lot of the vendors on the network space, on the endpoint space, to really get the synergy going and achieve a true zero trust platform. Right? You can't achieve zero trust. Many people said that before. You can't achieve zero trust just by using one tool. You need a combination of them, and you need the processes and the people around it. So let me give you an example of someone that embraces connectivity cloud, and that's Canva. If you are not familiar with Canva, you should check them out. They are very interesting. They are basically challenging the Adobes of the world. They are leading graphic design solution. If you want to build like nice things for birthdays and greeting cards and all that, they are a very good solution. So what they did, Canva, is they started by using our web application firewall because they are a web-based solution and they have a lot of traffic. So they started using this, and today we are delivering a lot of data through Cloudflare. And then they realized, okay, that's fine. I have my eyeballs or my clients, taken care of. What about my own employees? That's where they started going into the zero trust portion. And then they realized that, okay, that's very easy to use. Let's see what Cloudflare has on top of that. And then it's a software company, so they started using our development platform as well. So today, if Cloudflare goes down, Canva goes down. We are critical infrastructure for them, and they are always happy to talk about how easy it is to work with us. So why is it so easy and why they like to work with us? I'm just going to go through a quick ideas about what makes Cloudflare a different solution. So we have, first, a huge network. We spend years building that network. Today it's covering a lot of cities, like 335 cities, and 20% of the web traffic is flowing through Cloudflare. So that took a lot of time to build, but now we have this and we just build solutions on top of that. And all this, in the Philippines specifically, you can see where we are present. So Cagayan, Cebu, Manila, and Tarlac City. So we are highly localized data center. And one of the founding principles of Cloudflare at the beginning was like every single service that we're going to build on top of that network will be available everywhere. So that means if today you use Secure Web Gateway and you start with a very simple control and you want to move on to browser isolation and DLP and all the rest, you will still deliver these services at the same place, at the same data center. And that's very important for user experience. It's a single management, single interface. So we have one dashboard and one API, okay, to make it very easy for you to manage all of this and automate it. We have some clients not even touching the management dashboard. They all do via Terraform. So earlier during the panel, we were talking about some example of clients. That's the type of clients that I was talking about. Large retailer. Carrefour is a very large retailer in Europe. They reduced the incident response by 75%, their response time. Why? Because they consolidated a lot of their infrastructure into a Cloudflare platform. We have, on the building side, we have a lot of companies, actually almost all of them, roughly 80% of the top Gen AI company using Cloudflare as the backend. For different reasons, they might be storing the data to train their model. They might be building that application on the back of our worker environment, or they might be just running inference. There's a huge shift now in AI, where we are not only training, but we just want to do inference at the edge. And that's what Cloudflare is providing. And the last one, I mentioned this food delivery, right? Delivery Hero. You might not be familiar with them, but I'm sure you know this one, Foodpanda. So Foodpanda is using Cloudflare for the whole ZTNA. They have 44,000 users every day working based on the Cloudflare solution. So if you get your food on time, that's thanks to us. If you don't get your food on time, that's not because of us, okay? So we are just getting started. What I explained is what is available right now, but we do have a lot of things coming up. Last year, we made acquisition on what we call the magic cloud networking. So we like to call our stuff magic because there's always a secret sauce behind it. But what is magic cloud networking? It's basically a management of hybrid cloud. Today, if you think about an Azure environment and a GCP environment, and you want to copy one into another, you have to hire minimum 2 people. One that understands Azure, one that understands GCP. Because the naming, the way they work are totally different. With this, in 5 minutes, you can copy an entire configuration on Azure, push it down to GCP, and get your DR ready to go. Infrastructure access management. We talked about VPN, we talked about giving a secure remote access to application, but what about the sysadmin? What about the software developers? What about people that need to access an SSH console or need to access a Kubernetes environment? This is going to make your life much, much easier because you can have the same zero trust policy applied for everyone. Privileged user, software developer, cloud developer, any users. And finally, and this is super interesting, I'm very excited about that, inline cloud security. If you are familiar with CSPM, Cloud Security Posture Management, it's a tool that basically is reactive. So you change a configuration in a cloud environment, you wait 24 hours, you receive an alert, you shouldn't have done that. Okay, thanks, but now it's there for 24 hours. So we're going to bring that to way more proactive method, which means if one of your employees are sending an API call to AWS and spin up a S3 bucket, and that S3 bucket doesn't have the right properties. It's not encrypted, it's not constrained by IP whitelisting, all of this, the API call will be blocked. So you can't even create that instance. And that's very, very useful because it's basically shift left on the cybersecurity posture. So that's all what I wanted to share with you today, very quick. just before I go, just want to remind you that we are almost everywhere. So the next time when you go on vacation and you are chilling and enjoying your beer, think about the data Cloudflare that is next to you. Thank you so much.